Ladies, gentlemen, and raiders of all Ark, this game is absolutely wonderful. I have had a frankly unhealthy amount of time spent in the game so far, given we're not even a month past release. I have done so many different things, experienced so many different things, and I've gotten a lot of fun out of all the different parts of this game that I could, and I think the game is incredible, no doubt about it, but I also think it would be a mistake to call it flawless. Nothing is without flaws. Nothing is literally perfect, but especially with the developers being quite active in their post-launch support, that means no flaw is necessarily going to be permanent. So today I want to just talk about a number of things that I either think are currently an issue, or just things I think could enhance the game in general moving forwards. Sometimes a bit of a mixture of both, because I don't generally like bringing up problems without some type of potential solution, even though I am, of course, not a game developer myself, just someone who enjoys playing video games quite a bit. But I've got some ideas of my own, and I've seen quite a few suggestions for ways to improve the game that I think deserve a bit more attention too. So let's discuss these things and see if you guys agree with me that they would be good for the game if they were added or not. And of course, if you think there are improvements to be made that I don't mention, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below too. First things first then, just to get it out of the way, fix the exploits. This is only really here by technicality of what the video is. I feel like it's obvious that this should be a thing. It's not like a fun addition to the game, but currently there are multiple exploits that are a problem and make the game worse while they exist. The two most prominent are the double pump shotgun exploit, where you can basically skip the pump cycle with shotguns, or any gun that has any sort of animation between shots, and it just ruins the balance of PvP while that exists, which currently it still does. The other big one is the two-man locked door room entry exploit thing, where you can basically boost another player through a door and then split the loot inside. This essentially invalidates any key that leads to a room that you can do this in. It makes owning the keys feel pointless, it makes using the keys feel pointless, and it just purely takes away from this game to exist. Aside from that, not really an exploit, but the desync issues need to get fixed too. It is probably the most vocal complaint I have seen in the player base since launch, but there are countless examples of people getting shot while they are behind cover on their screen because they weren't behind cover for the other player. Desync, to a certain extent, is to be expected in an online shooter, but it's really quite bad right now in Ark Raiders. It is not up to the standard of most online games, and it's still not been fixed quite yet. That said, let's get out of the part where I feel like I'm just complaining about things and into the part where I get to start talking about new features or concepts that I would like to see added to the game. First one here, let's change how spawns work in Ark Raiders. Currently, another big issue I see people talking about is how easy it is to get spawn camped and killed. I haven't had it happen to me personally, but with the game having set spawns, with there not being a crazy high number of spawns, and with the nature of the game being that you have to load in at least a little bit before you can actually move your character, some players have decided to start camping potential spawns just to get a free pile of loot by shooting someone easily when they spawn into the raid after the beginning of the timer. This is obviously a problem. There are various potential solutions to this, but the one I think is the best is a pretty radical shift to the game as a whole. I think that custom loadout using players should always spawn in at the immediate start of a raid timer. Just remove the ability for people using custom loadouts to spawn during the raid. Free loadout players should always spawn during the raid timer. This would then do multiple things. First, it means that if someone chooses to camp a spawn, they basically have nothing to actually gain. The only thing that they will be able to kill is a free loadout player. This should disincentivize the people that have that player behavior. There would still, of course, be players who do it just because they like making people angry, but you can't stop those people from being what they are. But it would cut out any of the people who do those things for quote-unquote easy, good rewards. Past that, it would create a clearer distinction between free loadouts and low-value custom loadouts. Right now, because of the way that the safe pocket works, for the vast majority of activities you could be wanting to do, it's just more worth it to enter a raid while using no weapons, no augment, no shield, just bring 5 adrenaline shots to get where you want to go, have your safe pocket because you're not using a free loadout, and then if you find something valuable, stick it in there and get out. Then if you're obviously just after one thing, you have the safe pocket, whereas free loadout does not get a safe pocket, and that is such a big detriment. Obviously, you're better off bringing a cheap gun if you're doing this as well, just so you're not literally empty-handed, but I think after the first day of gameplay, once I had the most basic of materials, I just never felt a reason to ever use a free loadout again over a custom one. The safe pocket is too big of a deal. How would this change things then? Well, it makes free loadout runs be inherently weighted more towards combat over looting, as you are guaranteed to be loading into an active raid that other players have already been looting things during. So your best chance of getting value from that raid is either killing Ark that respawn, or engaging in PvP. But before people get upset about me mentioning more incentive for PvP, if the people with the most incentive to PvP are the people that have free loadouts, that also means the people who have more to risk, the people with custom loadouts, will have less danger. good, because fighting someone who has a free loadout while you have a custom loadout should always give you an inherent advantage unless your custom loadout is just really bad. There's always a chance that a change like this could lower the general friendliness of lobbies in the community and make PvP more of a thing, but this is just an idea. It's a concept. It's one way that we could fix multiple problems with one action. I don't think it's perfect. It could create more issues, but I like providing potential solutions. Next one then is mid-raid specific, and it's this transparent backpack glitch that I've seen a few people mention having happen on occasion. And actually, I think this looks good. Like, it looks genuinely better to me than having the background that we do have when looting. Obviously, the reason that the background exists is most likely because the developers want you to have lowered awareness while you're looting. It's only fair if while your face is in a box, you can't see what's going on around you. And the transparent background lets you stay quite aware of what's going on, so it might be a little bit too powerful, but I like the way that it looks. Would it be good for the game if everyone always had this? I don't know, but I think it's a neat suggestion. After that, I want to quickly talk about quests. There are a good number of quests in the game. Most of them give some level of reward, with a few of them even giving full-on blueprints as rewards, which are the ones that I think are the most meaningful. That said, the quest system as a whole in Arc Raiders feels very sort of redundant. It almost feels like a tutorial more than any sort of long-term completion goal, and most of the rewards are pretty negligible, making it feel almost just like a checklist that you're going through if you want to get the quests off your UI more than anything else. Quests in extraction shooters have a lot of potential, and you could absolutely either add quests that are more involved, multi-step, difficult things that have interesting objectives or just require a lot of time, multiple raids to actually complete, then give these quests equally worthwhile rewards, or even just rework the quest system in general so that you get more blueprints from the quests. I think my favorite option would be to add like 5 to 10 longer, more in-depth quests that you can only reach after you've completed all the current basic quests, and then each of these new long quests rewards one of the high rarity blueprints. Maybe we make things like Tempest, Bettina, Bobcat, and Vulcano blueprints be drops that are guaranteed from specific late game quests. Things that are very, very deep, require lots of commitment and progression to reach, and we could even still leave the RNG versions of those blueprints in the game in case you get lucky enough to have it drop before you get to the quests. But I think something along those lines would be a fun way to make the quests in the game just feel better. On the note of blueprints, I have a ton of things to talk about with blueprints. First request is just more clarity from the developers about what blueprints aren't in the game actively. In the base game, a number of high rarity blueprints basically just didn't exist until patch 1.2, and then they did start to drop. That was a bit of a hiccup. I think it was most likely an accident, like a bug that needed fixing, and then it was fixed, so I don't begrudge them too much for that one. However, when patch 1.2 dropped, they increased the total list of blueprints from 68 to 74. One new blueprint for each of the 6 new items that were added in that patch. For a full week after this, not a single person on the planet was able to find any of the 6 new blueprints. So all in-game information says that there are 6 new blueprints available. The patch made it clear that things were added to the game, and item descriptions were even updated to say if they were used in crafting recipes for these new blueprints, but the blueprints themselves just didn't exist. Even right now, they made a change in patch 1.3 that changed the crafting recipe for the deadline, despite the fact that nobody has a deadline blueprint and didn't have one before because they're not dropping. They made the Aphelion blueprint start dropping in patch 1.3, but it was very clearly a trail of intentional decisions this time rather than just a bug that was fixed. And so I just wish that we were told ahead of time that it wasn't actually in the game yet before we all went searching for it for a full 7 days without anyone finding one. That's all. That said, as far as more meaningful long-term blueprint changes moving forwards, there's quite a bit that can be done with this. One major issue that I've talked about in previous videos is the expedition system. When the expedition happens, one of the things that we lose if we take part in it is every single blueprint that we have found. Personally, I am really sort of hesitant about the expedition right now, purely because of the blueprints. Because despite the long-term benefits of the expedition, the stacking benefits every time you do it, having to reset your blueprints and start that from the beginning, even just that, is a really big time commitment. All of the other things being reset obviously matters, but I feel like blueprints are one of the most important parts of long-term success in the game, and at the current blueprint drop rates the way that they currently work, there just won't be many people at all who have a fully filled out blueprint list, even at the end of a nearly 3-month window from launch until the expedition. Blueprints are going to be a big reason that people do not engage with the expedition system, unless that system is changed in some way. There are a few suggestions that I would like to float as far as blueprints go. First, the ability to select 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 blueprints to save them so you keep those recipes through the expedition. expedition. Maybe tie it to the same thing as like your stash value, part of the final step that decides how many bonus skill points you get and such. Maybe like the same way that you can get bonus skill points, you can get blueprints you save. Maybe if you provide enough stash value, you get to keep a couple of your learned blueprints that you get to choose which ones. Maybe you really love the snap hook, like I do, even though you wouldn't be able to make them regularly until your workshops were upgraded again and your resources were more under control, but I would still love to be able to use snap hooks as early as I can. Other suggestions are to simply change how blueprint collection works in general, and to use the expedition as the specific time to make those major adjustments. The best suggestions that I've seen in the community are, first, the ability to turn multiple of an item into its own blueprint. Let's say that you manage to collect 10 anvils, fill 10 stash slots with those anvils. Maybe you should be able to then turn those 10 anvils into one anvil blueprint. Essentially, a way to target farm blueprints at the cost of stash space and inventory management required while you're doing it. And that would make it very hard to target farm multiple at the same time as well, because then you'd be using so much inventory space, and that would create its own sort of limit to the system. Another option is to add a chance to learn a blueprint when recycling an item. Like maybe every time you recycle a weapon, you have a 1% chance of learning its related blueprint. So on average, you recycle the gun 100 times, then you gain the ability to craft it. And I like the logic of this one, because when you take something apart with your hands, you usually work out some bits about how to put it back together too. The final suggestion I have is a way to turn blueprints that you already know into ones that you do not yet know. A general just like pity system where blueprints are weighted towards dropping ones that you don't already know would be good to begin with, but I would also like something like a machine that you can throw 5 blueprints into that you already know the recipes from. Then it will spit out a new blueprint, a single new blueprint that you guaranteed do not already have. So 5 blueprints that you know for one that you don't, or whatever number the devs decide is balanced. The amount doesn't really matter so much as the idea. I just want more ways to go about getting blueprints, especially ways that let me target or purposefully aim for ones that I do not have. As well, talking of target or purposeful aiming while looting, I saw a neat idea from someone who said the yellow and red loot zones on the maps should move around each raid. Obviously, the buildings are designed in the way that they are because they expect red areas to have lots of PvP or just players in general, so they design them tight, cramped, dangerously. They design them more like little PvP maps with lots of angles, crevices, corners, ways to outmaneuver or outplay. So moving the red and yellow loot zones around each raid would directly change the gameplay of the game. It would change how these areas feel, but at the same time, I do sort of love the idea of the randomness of this. Like maybe you load into the damn battlegrounds and you notice that this raid, the apartment complex, is suddenly a high value loot zone. You go there and it has both more loot and higher quality loot as well. It would add a lot of more sort of randomness to the game, but in a way that I think would make it feel more dynamic. And the only real downside is again the fact that the red and yellow loot zones are currently very purposely designed, and they would no longer feel quite as purposely designed to be those types of high traffic areas. Past that, most of my remaining suggestions are either in the stash, inventory, or workshop, or just other aspects of the menu, so let's talk about those. First things here, loadout templates. You should be able to save a loadout that you have created and then press a button to autofill your slots with those same items if they're available in your stash. You could even take that a step further by giving you a prompt to craft any items that you are missing from that loadout if you have the required parts. It is such a large effort between raids that I saw someone who works as a UX designer literally create a mock-up of what this type of thing could look like because they think it's that important for the game. And to me, if people are going out of their way to do things like that, it means that something here can absolutely be improved for sure. And while we're here, I'd also love a search bar on the stash screen that I can type into to find specific items. Some overlapping things with that then, when crafting items, you should be shown if you can craft the required parts. Like let's say that you want to upgrade or repair a gun. You don't have the mechanical components, maybe you don't have gun parts, but you have the recipes to craft those things and you have the materials to do so. So why isn't there some sort of prompt on the screen that lets you do it here nice and easy without having to go through multiple different menus? After that, I want to talk about workshop upgrades, and I think there are 2 big main things that could be done quite easily that would make the system feel a lot better. First, mark items that are required for workshop upgrades. Put some sort of symbol on their icon so that players know when they're looking at one of these items. It's important. The ideal version of this would be if the little symbol only appears until you do the upgrade, then it goes away. It stops appearing until you do an expedition, and secondarily, if it also showed up on any item that would be a part of future workshop upgrades too. But I still would accept it if this only showed your current set of upgrade requirements. I just think the other version would be even better. And we already have a system that somewhat does this a little bit, which is the track resources button. It does put symbols on the icons that shows you that it's one of your tracked resources, but I think this is something that you could just do automatically for workshop upgrades, and that you could do for workshop upgrades that you do not even have the ability to do yet, just so you know what things are important to keep long term. I just think it could be a little bit better than it is, that's all. The other big thing I think would help workshop is the ability to partially submit the required items. Upgrade requires 3 rusted gears, 5 advanced mechanical components, and 4 sentinel firing cores. Well, I have 3 rusted gears and some advanced mechanical components. Why can't I just submit those for now, clear up some of my inventory space, and remove the chance that I'll accidentally recycle or sell or use some of those bits by accident that I was trying to save for this? We can already do stuff like this when contributing to the expedition project. We could do it when putting materials in for the Stella Montis event. So this to me just seems like a no-brainer to work into the workshop upgrades too. Next up, let's talk stash stack sizes. I think there should be some way to increase item stack sizes in the game. You could tie this to being one of those long-term difficult quests like I was talking about earlier. That could be a good way of doing it, so it's like a progression unlock. Or you could tie it to the expedition rewards, like maybe you gain an extra 5 or 10% stack size per expedition completed in a row or something like that. You can make it do something like avoid applying to ammo so it doesn't mess up the balance too badly, but this can be something that just ramps up to being amazing quality of life later on in the game's life cycle if they made that type of change early. On a similar wavelength to that, I want a new inventory slot that is specifically only for displaying things that show up in your raider's bedroom, like how they made rubber ducks now show up in massive amounts if you have massive amounts of them. But I want it to be a slot that has no stack limit, and they can easily balance this by just making it so items cannot transfer from that new slot back into your stash. They have to either be recycled or sold, but I'd love to just have a place where I could stick like 100 ducks and not worry about it taking up my stash space. But yeah, that is more of a silly personal request really. That said, it is also arguably a cosmetic feature, which connects nicely to me wanting to discuss cosmetics as well. Price, of course, is a factor, and I'd always love for the price to be lower on shop cosmetics. Yes, I know they have already lowered the prices once, but it is still a full-priced game with relatively expensive skins, so it does bear repeating. Outside of that, outfits should have interchangeable parts. Why can't I mix the helmet from one outfit with the jacket from a second outfit, and then the pants from a third outfit? I understand there are some unique specific bits like oxygen tanks that would be weird if you didn't have the helmet as well, or scarves that would clip through things potentially, but just things like that make more sense if they design the outfit as one coherent piece. But I feel like our freedom of expression as players is severely limited at the moment, and I would love for them to just implement the ability to mix and match these outfits. I mean, Embark's previous game, the Finals, did exactly this with its cosmetic system, and it worked absolutely beautifully, despite that game also having a bunch more body type options than Arc Raiders has too, so there clearly were a lot more potential issues there. Past that, I would love more color options for the outfits in Arc Raiders 2, more choices of color for hair especially. I mean, my avatar in most games has pink hair and pink clothes. It's just one of the things that I consistently do, and at least as of right now, there's no haircut that can be pink, and no outfit that can be pink, except maybe like a part of the camo on this newish one here, but that doesn't really count for what I'm after. The other main thing on this note is facial hair cosmetics. It's a bit weird that there's no facial hair options. It's not like a requirement, but I'd love to be able to have a beard, or just like a big twirly 1920s mustache. Either one of those would work. Also, while we're on the topic of cosmetics, why do helmets make your character's random movement and breathing noises so much louder? I understand this game has a lot of realism and stuff like that, but it straight up makes wearing helmets a detriment, literal negatives for fashion, which I think is sort of wild really. Then my final suggestion slash request is more in-depth mechanics for the recorder item. I love musical items in games. I especially love a musical item in a game where any player could choose to shoot me at any moment, but decides not to shoot me because I'm playing music. I think that side of this game is so much fun. It's like a social experiment, and I find it very enjoyable. So I would love a way to actually control the sounds that come out of this item. A good example would be a game like Peak. There is a bugle in that game, and the note that you play changes depending on where you're aiming your camera. Aiming low, you'll play a low note. Aiming high, you'll play a high note. And using that, you can sort of actually play music in that game, and I would love that type of concept for the recorder in Arc Raiders 2, so I can actually learn it as an instrument and play proper songs for my fellow raiders. Yes, it's silly, and yes, I really do want to be able to do it, okay? This is my list. That just about does it for today, then, everyone. A list of problems and potential solutions or changes that I would like to see in Arc Raiders moving forward. I don't know that all of these are necessarily things that should be in the game, but they're all things that I think would be interesting, and I'd love to hear your own opinions on them, as well as any suggestions of your own in the comment section down below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.